What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. Who do you believe in more, the Thunder or the Timberwolves as a championship contender?
This is a tough one, and we've had this conversation before. I think that OKC has a lot of advantages. I think that in this series, they pretty clearly have the best player on the floor. SGA is playing at an unbelievable, consistent superstar level. I think that they clearly have the higher level of overall offensive perimeter skill when you just consider that they're going to play 5 out a whole lot of time, and so many dudes can handle, so many dudes are quick, good athletes. The spacing is just clearly better. Whereas Minnesota, although Cat is obviously super skilled, big, they still are running these two big looks with a very conventional offensive 5. And they are really just like a quick, athletic team. I'm looking forward to seeing them with Gordon Hayward when he debuts after the All-Star break, because to me, the biggest red flag about this team in the playoffs, arguably at the very least, there's a couple other ones, experience, as we talked about, strength, physicality in the front court, but particularly playing Josh Giddey 25 minutes a game just doesn't do it for me. I think that when you have a guy who is not a plus athlete, not a plus touch shot maker, certainly not a plus defender, and then really struggles to knock down open catch and shoot jumpers, like that guy's just going to get played off the floor in a playoff series. It doesn't matter how snazzy, how sick of a passer he is. There's too many exploitable weaknesses there, particularly against Minnesota. We saw the Minnesota Timberwolves do what any Rudy Gobert anchor defense loves to do more than anything in the world, which is park Rudy in the paint, have him as a full-time helper, say, let's put him on the weakest shooter on the team who can just sit in the corner and Rudy doesn't have to guard that guy. And that's what they did against Josh Giddey. If it's Gordon Hayward, who brings all the same good traits, the playmaking, the ability to create in those drive and kick situations, to handle out of pick and roll, he does all of that, but he's better in terms of the scoring on ball. And then he also will actually knock down 40% of his catch and shoot jumpers. So maybe seeing that realized changes my opinion on this, because I have concerns about Minnesota. Jason, last time we were on with you, or maybe the time before that, you harped on Minnesota's clutch offense, and that has become more and more of a concern to me as of late. It really matters that you're a damn good half-court offense if you want to make a deep playoff run, and they just aren't. And in the clutch in particular, they haven't been. But ultimately, I still think they are a much more mature basketball team in terms of playoff experience. They are much more physically mature. I mean, they are just so much stronger and more physical. I like the depth for both of these teams, so that's not necessarily a huge difference maker for me. And I really do believe that this defense is going to be elite regardless of the matchup. I wonder a little bit if like the Thunder could attack Cat in space, because they have so many quick guys who can handle the ball and they can run really those 4 perimeter players at all time lineups, and then Chet at your 5, who's super skilled from the perimeter too. But you mentioned the rock fight, and it does feel like in those hyper physical environments, Minnesota still just fares a little bit better, and they've been there before. But I don't know. It's really close for me here, because OKC is pretty clearly the better offensive team, and I don't necessarily see that changing, but I do think Minnesota can kind of grind people down with elite defense and then just enough of that half-court shot making from Ant and Cat.
It's very close between these teams, and Minnesota does scare me in some hypothetical matchups, like 5 out against the Clippers, 5 out against the Warriors, 5 out against the Thunder if Gordon Hayward, is really effective in those lineups. Like, I think that's the kind of way to beat Minnesota, is to draw them out. But I do just have more confidence in Minnesota, and they've been really impressive. In their last 10, they're number 1 in net rating, they're number 5 in offensive rating, number 1 in defensive rating, and they do just have physical advantages where, like, in those scenarios offensively and in certain possessions, like the Warriors do scare me, but they're going to crush them on the glass. Like Gobert, 7'1", 7'9" wingspan. Towns, 7 foot, 7'4" wingspan. McDaniels is somewhere between 6'9" and 6'11" with a near 7 foot wing. They're huge. And Anthony Edwards is a tank. You know what I mean? They're just, they're big and physical. And I think their track record's kind of proven this regular season. They're 20-11 on the road. They have the best record in the league versus teams that are above 500. Like, yeah, I do worry about this offense stalling out in the half-court setting. Spacing issues because of Rudy Gobert. Karl Anthony Towns disappearing on a big stage. Right now, they're 20th in clutch offensive rating, 107.9. That's the fifth lowest of any current top 8 seed, any current playoff team that's in there. And OKC, that's not a problem. They have the number 1 half-court offense in basketball. They have the number 3 clutch offensive rating this year. Like, OKC just doesn't have those offensive weaknesses. Minnesota does, but I like their track record. I like their defense more. I like their continuity. And I don't know, man. I kind of like the vibes of this team. I don't know, man. I like the vibes in Minnesota right now, to say the least. You guys, did you guys see the shirt that Mike Conley was wearing the other night? The Finchy shirt. I don't know, man. I like the energy of Minnesota a lot. Is a bit of a cop out. Minnesota's huge, and that ultimately is the distinction to me. I believe in the defense. I believe in their physical and athletic advantages. And in a grimy, nasty playoff environment where it's tough to get a bucket, I think Minnesota is equipped to deal with those environments.
So this is going to come off as like OKC slander, which I don't intend it to, because here's the thing. I'm super, super high on Oklahoma City in the big picture. I even love the Gordon Hayward pickup. I mean, to put it simply, he's just a way better basketball player than Josh Giddey.
Yes.
And so you basically turned what was a weak fit guy in your best 5 into essentially a guy who's arguably perfect. Maybe not positionally, but at least in terms of like veteran guy who could do all the little things well, in terms of like a connectivity type of piece. Like I think it just makes a ton of sense. I also like, I was literally thinking about this last night. This thought hit me randomly because our next question, we're going to be talking about Kendrick Perkins and his mythological superstar trade that he says is going to happen this summer. But I was thinking about this last night. I was like, man, like what if the Bucks just go up in flames in like a really ugly way, and then next year they try it again and it's just as bad? And then all of a sudden the Bucks look around and they have no assets and a bunch of old role players. And then Giannis goes like, I want out of here. You know who's getting them, right? Oklahoma City is getting like they're throwing 7 or 8 first round picks at him. and like that's literally the position they need so bad, is that power forward position, and like that's where it could get really, really scary. And obviously, who knows, maybe Giannis would prefer a bigger market, but like I just look at it like, man, I was thinking about that last night. I was like, oh god, that could be completely terrifying. But to put it simply, within the lens of this season, I think the Timberwolves are a significantly better playoff threat. And before I even go any further, I'm just going to spit it back to you guys. Let's quit looking at this as Minnesota versus Oklahoma City. Carson, which team has a better chance to beat Denver?
Yeah, Minnesota.
Like they match up so much better physically. Like again, like Oklahoma City has had some advantages in the regular season against Denver, but Denver's been kind of a mediocre regular. Like they're going through another one of those like kind of patches right now where they could give a shit on any given night, and like guys are hurt, and like I think Denver would eat Oklahoma City alive in a playoff series personally. So, Logan, would you take Minnesota or Oklahoma City against Denver?
Oh, easily Minnesota.
Yeah. So like that, like let's just stop beating around the bush here for a second. Like Carson, you actually said earlier when we were talking about the Warriors, like everything has to be looked through the lens of how do we beat Denver, and I just don't. I just don't think Oklahoma City has anywhere near the physical presence they need to hang in that series for 7 games. And I mean, we literally just saw Minnesota, like as much as the issues that they can have offensively at the end of games, they also have the ability to just completely lock up the other team late in games. We literally just saw this against the Clippers the other night. And even with some of their half-court offense stuff, there's a physical imposition to where it's like, oh, you finally get a stop, but Rudy Gobert just taps the ball out. They have another offensive rebound. They can have another go at it. There's a look at like, there's a pretty consistent theme, albeit in only 2 series, but like Anthony Edwards, his athleticism just translates to a really, really good NBA playoff player. It just, and then there's always just the NBA history part. Would you rather have the young, inexperienced small team that has a shit ton of talent, or the big strong veteran team that has a shit ton of talent? like let's just get down to the nitty gritty here. So like I think I would take Minnesota over them, and to be clear, I'm not I am so high on Oklahoma City long term. I think they're a really, really good team that is lacking some specific things that I think are necessary to succeed in the NBA playoffs. Did you guys have any follow-ups there, or can we move on?
Just real quick, I mean, literally nobody guards the Nuggets better than the Minnesota Timberwolves because they have the perfect formula of Cat can hold up physically as a post defender with Jokic. That's not to say that he's going to make him like actively uncomfortable, but he holds up better than like most teams' number one post defense option, which then allows Gobert to disrupt things as help, to disrupt all of those lobs and bounce passes to Aaron Gordon. They have the athletes on the perimeter. So I do think that that's ultimately what it comes down to. Like Jokic would take OKC's lunch every single possession. He literally said, like, Chet, you need to get fatter. And that's very real for that specific matchup. So I agree definitely on that. Everything's going to go through Denver and Minnesota. It would still be a long shot, but they just have a better formula.
Logan, any follow-ups?
I completely agree. I mean, I just think that the physical imposition, Minnesota is one of the most physical and athletic teams in the league. It's just, it's going to, if there's one thing that's been proven to, I mean, that's going to directly translate to good on playoff basketball. And I think they match up well physically against any team they're going to run into. And I wouldn't pick it, but I can definitely see Minnesota giving them trouble.